Hey, my name is Jordan from Fishkeeping Made Easy, and today I'm going to show you how to set up an easy to maintain nano tank step by step. So first thing to remember is that nano tanks need to have all the same equipment and maintenance of larger tanks. No unheated, unfiltered bowls. You've got less water to work with, so there's a much larger margin for error. I feel this is not really explained to people well enough when they're purchasing nano tanks. I would always advise beginners to get the largest tank they can possibly fit in their house. Also, make sure the tank is cycled properly before adding fish. We're going to make a video shortly about cycling tanks, and we also have a video on the top 10 nano fish, so check that out if you're looking for stocking ideas. So let's get into the video. Now, the scape was inspired by this large piece of wood that you can see that we picked up from Fishkeeper Scotland. The piece of wood was large enough and unique enough looking that it created the perfect focal point. Now, hardscape helps to provide depth and make the scape more dynamic and just sort of brings it to life. So I'd say when you're buying hardscape, don't really think about it too much. Just buy pieces and experiment with it when you get home, and any leftover stuff can just be used in future scapes. So you can see everything we used here on the table. I'll go into detail of these when we go through the scape step by step, but in terms of equipment, what we used was a cheap light from Amazon, which is actually really good, and we used a JBL nano filter, which I've used in many scapes before and I really like it. So we used some spare filter sponge as a cheap and easy way to create height at the back. You can use rocks or other substrate to create the same result, but this to us is just an easier way and a cheaper way of doing it. It also provides a bottom layer for bacteria. So next, we glued our moss and Anubias to the wood. You can also use fishing line or thread to create the same thing. The Anubias roots will just eventually attach themselves to the wood, and so will the moss. Anubias is probably my favourite aquatic plant as it grows really well on wood and rocks and does not need planted. It takes nutrients out the water, so a liquid fertiliser will keep it going. A healthy plant will grow at least a leaf every couple of weeks or so. Although the only thing about it is you don't want to place it directly under the light, as it's sort of a low light, low nutrient plant, so it will eventually start to grow algae on the leaves if it gets too much light. So next we added our substrate, which was the JBL Monado. This stuff isn't actually nutrient rich, it's just a substrate that really helps to support roots and is a good place for bacteria to colonise. I've used this on quite a lot of my scapes and I actually find it's quite good. Well, underneath the substrate we put some root tabs, as initially we were going to have some stem plants, but we ended up taking them out as they didn't actually fit the scape that well. I would recommend, if you can, to get a nutrient rich substrate. However, you really need to read the packaging, as some of these will give off ammonia when they're first put in, so the cycling of a tank could be a little bit different. Next, we added some Java ferns. Just like Anubias, Java ferns also attach to wood or rock, so we basically just wedged it behind the big piece of wood and eventually it would attach to it. They're also a low light plant, so it was a pretty good place for them to be half in the light and half in the shade. The unique thing about Java ferns is they grow these little black dots on the back of the leaves. Now, some people think this is a leaf dying, but this is actually how they reproduce. The little black dots will eventually turn into little leaves, and these will break off, creating brand new plants. We used some lava rock to try and create a little bit of a ledge. This also made the scape a little bit more 3D and gave it this much more dynamic effect. It also doubled as caves for the shrimp and the pygmy cories. So we added some of the Anubias and some of the moss to the lava rock. This again just created more places for the pygmy cories and the shrimp to hide, and it also gave a little bit more volume to the sort of plants that we had in the tank. Next, we added our carpeting plants, Cuba and Brazilian micro swords. Now, if you just want an easy to maintain, low tech nano tank, then I wouldn't bother with carpeting plants, as they kind of need the CO2 and a decent light to thrive. They won't necessarily die without these, but you won't get the same effect in a carpet. So this is the finished product. As you can see, it looks really natural, a great contrast in colour between the hardscape and the plants, a lot of depth and a lot of detail. These scapes with a little bit of liquid fertiliser, liquid carbon and weekly water changes will flourish and transform into underwater jungles, perfect conditions for shrimp and nanofish. So I'd like to thank my friend Nathan who helped make this scape. He actually maintains it in his house, and he was the one who made this cool waterfall effect with some leftover dragonstone and the filter outlet. He also added some moss and Anubias, which just gave a nice finish to the tank. So that's this week's video. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you enjoyed it, and please follow us on Instagram at Fishkeepingmadeeasy.